we can.
Thank you. You explained that you're taking a holistic approach, can't get my words out, a holistic approach to all of this. We haven't talked about schools yet. I think, like many people, I feel really torn on the issue. I declared an interest as a parent of a 14-year-old. But if we look at what happened in August when the schools went back, the positivity rate and the positive cases, it went up. We get, I think we all do get almost daily updates from local authorities about outbreaks in schools and the numbers of both pupils and school staff who are self-isolating. What are you going to do about schools? Are they untouchable, or is there more that can be done both to enhance measures in schools, but are you actively thinking about possibly extending the school break over the Christmas and New Year periods? That didn't happen in October, and is that something that you regret?
No, I don't regret that, because I have not seen any evidence that that has had a particular impact on our broader, more general picture of transmission. Gregor will want to say a bit more about the science and the evidence on transmission in schools and amongst younger people. Broadly speaking, and I'm generalising here, I mean, Gregor can correct me if I'm stating this in any way too simplistically or erroneously, but the concern about transmission in schools is that it is reflective of wider community transmission. It is not a concern about transmission in schools, it's about what is happening in the wider community and the inevitability of that impacting on schools. Can I say, and I'm always conscious that things I say will get interpreted in 100 different ways, or certainly more than one way. Nothing, in the context we are dealing with just now, nothing's untouchable, because you can't have that position. I can't sit here and say, come what may, we will not do X, or come what may, we will do Y. That would take us into that inflexible position that I just don't think is sensible to have, given what we are dealing with. But with schools, it is where I think the balance of harms comes most into focus. The more you have schools impacted and the school experience of young people impacted, the more you are doing harm to young people through the lack of proper normal educational provision and social interaction with peers and friends and wider networks. And our judgment at the moment is that is a greater harm than the harm having schools is doing in terms of the wider picture of transmission. Now, that does not mean for a single second that we are not concerned about or in any way blasé about safety in schools. And by that, I don't just mean young people, obviously teachers and those who work in schools, which is why we keep the mitigation measures in schools under review and have changed the guidance on face coverings very recently as an example of how that is the case, and continue to discuss with teaching unions, with local authorities, with parents about the right balance there. But I am firmly of the view, and I think this is increasingly reflected in other countries, including countries going back into very strict lockdowns, that if at all possible, our objective should be to keep schools open, because I think that is in the interests of young people. And we will try to do that as far as possible. And that the price of that may be at times greater restrictions on the rest of the population to facilitate and enable that. And I think that's a trade-off that most people would think is worth making if we can possibly keep schools open.